Going to introduce our next speakers. Former NFL player Ken Ruettgers, who played in the Super Bowl for the Green Bay Packers, earned his BA in Business Administration from University of Southern California's Marshall School of Business, an MBA from California State University, Bakersfield, and received a PhD in Sociology from Oxford Graduate School in Dayton, Tennessee. Wow. Okay, and later he began teaching sociology classes part-time at Central Oregon Community College. Ken has also begun coaching football at a local high school in Sisters, Oregon. That's awesome. Ken's wife, Sheryl, was injured by one of these COVID injections, which prompted them to create the website C19 Vax Reactions, that's C19vaxreactions.com, in order to record and share testimonies of the many victims silenced by mainstream media. So please extend a very warm welcome to Ken and Sheryl Ruettgers. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. Wow, and thank you for the organizers of this event. A lot of work went into putting this event on, and Kevin Jenkins, wow. Yeah, I mean, he just raised the bar, right? So who wants to follow a guy like does that well? It's like, right, exactly. And I want to thank you all for being out here today too. I love this guy, man. I love this guy. He brings it, man. You rocked it. And we met down in San Diego at an event like this, and then a lot of you saw him on the DC Freedom Conference, so Stop the Mandates, and Steve Kirsch, of course, as well. So how fortunate are we that we get to hear these guys come to Oregon? Awesome. But I also want to thank you for being here today as well. You taking time out of your day and your busy schedule, and I love the creative signs you guys have got going on out there. I mean, there are some awesome, creative, and incredible signs. And the firefighters for freedom in the back, thank you guys for being here. We love you. Thanks for standing strong. As well as truckers, let's get the United States contingency of truckers going as well. Yeah. Well, this is my wife, Sheryl. Actually, I'm her husband. And she looks pretty good, doesn't she? I mean, 36 years of marriage. We just celebrated last week our 36-year anniversary. And you would not know that she has been battling a neurological vaccine injury in reaction for the last year. And I'll let her talk a little bit about that. But a year ago, she was working on her master's in counseling and getting working on her hours and in the mental health profession. And so she was strongly encouraged and told how safe it would be for her to get the vaccine to continue working and helping people in the first rollout of these jabs, right? These new experimental jabs that were coming out a little over a year ago. And she's very healthy, active mother. We got 3 grandkids that are all Oregonians. Wonderful that they're here. So we're here for them as well, just like you guys are speaking out and for yourselves and your family. And very active hiking and skiing and fly fishing in Central Oregon. And she took that shot. It has forever changed her life. And I want her to share that journey with you today. Thank you for being here. It's good to be here with you.
Well, I have to say that we have been slow to this party, really slow. But my vaccine injury opened our eyes, and I wish you could see what I see from up here. I mean, I love this country and I love Oregon, and we are just delighted to be here. And I have to do a call out to a group of mine, Team Reality. You know who you are. Team Reality. This is my group, my people. Turn up the volume or should I turn up my volume?
Turn up your volume.
Turn up my volume. All right. I'm going to use notes because my brain kind of fogs out sometimes.
Yeah, I can blame my forgetting to take out the trash on CTE, and now that she's been vaccine injured, she blames it on the vaccine brain fog. Yeah, which is legit.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah, okay. So, January 14th, 2021, I had my vaccine. I was fine. 4 days later, I woke up. My entire left side was numb, and I went to the emergency room because I thought I was having a stroke. The emergency room doctor told me that I was the third patient that he had seen within a week. One, which was a physician. All right, louder, sorry. One was a physician who had Bell's palsy. And I was told to go to a neurologist. They did a CAT scan. They ran all the tests, everything. I was totally healthy in terms of a scan and blood work. So neurologist number one, I've seen so many, I give them numbers now. Neurologist number one told me that she had not seen in a very long time such a beautiful brain. Great spine, everything looked healthy. And then she told me that she was going to start treating me for MS. And so I was very confused by that. And so I said to her, well, I thought you said that my brain looks healthy. I'm super confused. And she said, well, there's no other way for me to explain the symptoms that you're having, so I'm going to treat you for MS. And I said, is there any possible way that this could be my vaccine? And she said, there's absolutely no way that this could be your vaccine. Yeah. And so, what I want you to do is you go get the second shot and let's see what happens to your body. Right. So I told her I want a second opinion. Neurologist number two, he told me, we're all guinea pigs. You were a guinea pig, and so was I, and now I'm treating all the people with neurological reactions. And the truth is, we're flying blind. We do not know how to treat you. You are going to be hard-pressed to find a physician that will either, one, acknowledge your vaccine reaction, or two, have any indication on how to help you heal. And then I started to kind of ask questions, and I started telling people in my friend group about my vaccine reaction. And a lot of people said to me, you need to be silent about this because you will create vaccine hesitancy. So I started digging, and I started researching. And one day, the irony of this is hilarious. One day, at the bottom of an article that had quoted Fauci saying that there were no neurological reactions to the vaccines, there was a physician. Her name is Denise Hertz. She's a retired gastroenterologist. She put at the bottom of this article about her vaccine reaction and her contact info. So I contacted her. 5 days later, there were 6 of us. We started a little Facebook group, or a little email conversation. Within 2 weeks, there were over 150 of us that had found this woman through this article. So we started communicating. We started a Facebook group, and the numbers grew, all neurological. And when I say neurological, what I'm talking about, hand tremors, muscle twitching, brain fog, nerve pain, cramping, autonomic dysfunction, paresthesias, which is pins and needles, neuropathies, seizures. I mean, I could go on and on. You get the picture. It's a mess. And through that, like I said, our numbers grew, and we found another group of 10,000 people internationally who had formed a Facebook group. And one day, the group disappeared. 10,000 people. 10,000 people vaccine injured, and Facebook took down their group, and these people were left with nothing. Right. So the censorship was incredible, and we tried super hard to just sort of fly under the radar. And what I learned from this, I've learned a lot, is that if you become vaccine injured with these vaccines, you are utterly alone and isolated. You will be hard pressed to find a physician who will treat you and acknowledge your injury. And I think that's
Thank you. So her group had grown to 150 or more vaccine injured, mostly neurological people, mostly women, who had gone to their neurologists with autoimmune type damage, and you can imagine, right, the neurologist, without any information from the CDC, the NIH, the FDA, or the drug companies who knew about this months earlier. Well, honey, it's probably a little anxiety. Let me prescribe you a little Xanax or something. Gaslighting them, ghosting them, and Facebook canceling them. My brother and I said, well, let us start a website for you. And they came up with the name C as in COVID, C19 Vax, V-A-X, reactions.com, because their voices were not being heard. Their voices were being canceled and censored, and as she said earlier, don't say anything because you're going to increase vaccine hesitancy. People were scared to death to speak out. And so we started getting dozens and then hundreds of people that found out about the site that wanted their voices heard. And they were still scared, so they put their initials and their state. Didn't want to put their names, didn't want to pick their pictures. It was that bad a little less than a year ago. And we created this website, and then I teach sociology at the community college in Central Oregon, and so I was getting ready for summer break. I was really looking forward to being with my grandkids and fly fishing and a little golf maybe, but with this thing that came up, I started interviewing some of the women, mostly women, some of the people in her group, and then I'd edit the video. I'd do a video interview, and then I edit the video, and I interviewed, some of you know her, Maddie DeGarry, the 12-year-old that was in the trials. I interviewed her and her mom. It was part of the original 12 that started this group. And I started editing. When you do a video editing, you go over the same statements over and over, and you're trying to get it just right. And I'm in tears listening to Maddie and her mom talk about her vaccine injuries, and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, dogs, man, if I was a politician, I would do something about this. Talk about low-hanging fruit, right? My goodness, what a hero you would be, right? Helping people. These are collateral damage, right? As Americans, we were at this like war against COVID, right? And from what we all know, right, you don't leave collateral damage. You don't leave the people that are fighting the battle. You don't leave them on the battlefield injured. You take care of them. But we are not doing that. And I was thinking, man, I don't know. I'm out here in Oregon. I don't know. And I thought, you know what? There's a guy in Wisconsin, Ron Johnson. Whoa. Yeah. Exactly. Senator Ron Johnson. I thought, I don't know this guy, but he seems like a good man. He seems like a decent human being. Heard a couple sound bites from him, so I called his office. It was a Thursday morning. I talked to the receptionist and kind of just explained my wife's and her group's story. By that night, he was on the phone with us. Yeah. He said, can you get, I'd like to hear the stories. He's checking it out, right? I'd like to hear the stories from your group. And he was already kind of in this space. The stars aligned. It was the right guy, I guess, to call. Because he's pretty much one of the lone guys that are standing out there on this issue. And boy, is he taking arrows. You find a guy like that in Oregon or on the national stage, support them. These guys, these women and men that are in there, if they're not speaking out against the mandates, then we know they're what? For them, or they're chicken, you know what's. I used to have a lot of cuss words in the locker room, but that's not appropriate for out here. Yeah, I know. Hey, you're right. It might be. You're right. It is appropriate, but not for me. Okay, so not with the mic in my hand. Okay, so on a Sunday evening for 2 hours he listened with 60 people in her group on a Zoom call, and he brought in Dr. McCullough with him. And, yeah, this is in June. This is in early June when people. This wasn't public information yet. This was all this vaccine injury stuff was, and Dr. McCullough, in the middle of hearing these stories of these reactions, texted Senator Johnson, said, "This is unreal. I can't even believe how bad this is." That's Dr. McCullough saying that in June, early June. And so Senator Johnson said, "Well, do you want to do a press conference in Milwaukee at the federal courthouse?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." And he said, "I'm going to take most of the arrows, but you may get a few arrows too." I said, "Well, let me tell you something, Senator Johnson. When you're blocking for Brett Favre on the blind side and you're playing the Minnesota Vikings, because he's from Minnesota originally, and you're trying to come back and win the game with less than 2 minutes, and you give up a sack and you got to address you give up a sack and lose the game and you got to address the media." I said, that's hard. This is easy stuff. So let's bring it on, right? So, yeah, exactly. So Sheryl and I, and Maddie DeGarry and her mom, and Bree Dressen, who some of you know from, these people were, Bree Dressen is a preschool teacher, and Sheryl Ruettgers was a graduate student, and Stephanie DeGarry and Maddie were, these are regular people just like you and just like me. I mean, football's what I used to do. That's what I used to be. And so we started this website. We had this conference, and then we ended up being able to meet on a Zoom with the doctors in a group 3 times with the FDA. And all they asked for is, please, we know that you know, and we know you know that we know that you know about these vaccine reactions, these neurological vaccine reactions, that if the longer you let it go, the harder it is to treat because it's neurological. So all we're asking you is for truth and transparency. Let the medical community know that while this is happening and this is real. And today they are still refusing to let the medical community know the truth. And these are people that are working for? Who are these people working for? Us! You're dang right they're working. Who are the people in there working for? You're dang right. But it's like somehow it got flipped upside down, because it sounds like when I listen to these people talk, sounds like we're their servants instead of their public servants for us. So when you find somebody in there that stands for us, the people they're supposed to be serving, you vote for them. And when you get a chance and you get home, contact James Manning, right, who we talked to his staffers this morning, right? I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, is send us to the staffers until they get what? Like Kevin Jenkins said, they will respond when we what? When we speak out to them. So speak out to them. Yes. James Manning, he's a good man. He's a good man. He's in our Senate legislature. Yeah. And so giving you a little update, you want to give us an update on kind of where things are today?
Are we study today with this vaccine group and this sort of vaccine injury movement and trying to bring attention to it. Can you hear me? Am I loud enough? All right, louder! There is a bill that was introduced in June by Lloyd Doggett, H.R. 3655. It is a bill that would allow these vaccines to come under the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. The problem right now is that it's stalled. It's just sitting there. Nobody has voted on it. It is just dead. The other problem with this bill is that it does not have the words in it to include the vaccines that are UA approved. The experimental vaccines aren't...
Yeah, the experimental vaccines, the experimental biological injections that people are getting.
Gene therapy, we'll call it what it is. So what do we need? What are we working on? We are working with legislators trying to get them to amend or rewrite H.R. 3655 so that the people that are vaccine injured who have lost their jobs, lost their homes, in their health, can get some sort of compensation for their medical expenses and the suffering that they have incurred. The other thing we've done that is just incredible, blows my mind, no one would research us, no one would study us. We're kind of scary because nobody wants to believe that we exist. Neurological reactions to vaccines are frightening. And I have to tell you that I will be looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life. Neurodegenerative disease is probably in my future. And it's a sobering realization. And so because a lot of us were vaccine injured at the very first rollout, there's a lot of researchers, physicians, nurses, people in the healthcare community. So we started our own research company. Yeah. It's legit. You can find it at React, REACT19.org. And so we have some studies that people can sign up for. We have researchers that are starting to get their groups together so that we can begin to help the vaccine injured, because the FDA, the CDC, and the NIH, who, by the way, has been treating a lot of us, refuse to publicly acknowledge these reactions. Yeah. So my parting word to you is that this is a really lonely journey. And we are pushing up against a really tough brick wall. And so it's super important that you find your people, you link arms with those people, and you push back against that brick wall until it starts to fall down. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I teach sociology, so I was just teaching the other day about group conformity. Yeah, we see it everywhere these days, right? So 37% of the people get sucked in, in the Ashes experiment on group conformity. 37% of the people get sucked in to complying and going with the group. One of the knockoffs he did is, if you put one person that will stand up for the right answer, that number drops from 37% to 5%. Wow. So by you being here, by us being here today, we are knocking down the 37% of the people that are complying. Either they think they're wrong or they know they're right, but they comply anyway. We're knocking that down to 5%. I was traveling through the airport this last weekend. I was reading The Real Anthony Fauci by, yeah, it's really good, right? And I pulled it out of I had a carry-on. I pulled it out of my carry-on and I put it face jacket out, and walked through the airport. Yeah, not real, I mean, yeah, you start, oh man, I'm getting those labels, anti-vaxxers. Like, fine. But you know what? You're going to see it, and somebody out there, for every 4 people that saw it, 3 now that we're thinking about buying it, they'll go out and read it, and they'll get the truth. Yeah. The other thing, too, and I'll leave you with this. Join me. I was listening to Robert Kennedy Jr. and at the San Diego, and he said, and he encouraged all of us to commit 3 acts of non-compliance a day. 3, yeah. So I work really hard, and whether it's sharing something with a neighbor or a friend or family, or not wearing a mask, or carrying a book, face shot, whatever it is, it's non-compliance and going against the norm. These socially constructed, ridiculous social norms we've constructed over the last 1.5 years, 2 years, right? 3, don't get in trouble, don't get arrested, be nice, do it in love, like Kevin talks about, do it in love. 3 acts of non-compliance a day. Thank you. Let's keep up the fight. Appreciate you.